Again, my name is Joan Thomas. I'm the Director of External Relations at the American Public Gardens Association, and I'm your community liaison. And moderating today is your Vice Chair, Gabe Tylo of Phipps Conservatory. So I will turn it over to Gabe.
Hey everyone, it's nice to have all of you here. As you can see up on the screen, just have some general best practices for today. Today is a forum. This isn't just a sit back and relax webinar. We're hoping that all of you do participate. But as a general rule, self-mute yourself until you're ready to talk. When you do talk, please introduce yourself the first time you talk. So saying your name and what garden you represent. You can turn on or off your video selectively. When you're speaking, it's nice to be able to see you if we can, but it's certainly not necessary. Don't be shy. Please do feel free to jump into this conversation. This conversation is only going to go so far as you all take it, but also try to let everyone share. So if you feel like you've said a lot, maybe step back a little bit so we can hear from a diversity of folks. And then also just please utilize the chat box for side conversation, any resources, ideas. We will save our chat box conversation after this and share it with the notes. And I do want to mention at this point, one of my education colleagues, Sarah Berdovich, is on the call. She'll be taking notes throughout the conversation, so we'll be compiling those to share after the event along with the video. We also do have a poll that Joan can release here just to sort of get a sense of who is in the room. Joan, whenever you're ready, if you could release that poll, that'll give us a sense of kind of what people are working with now. So as you can see, we just want to get a sense. We know that people have a variety of current plans for this summer, so those may change over the course of this forum, but want to get a sense of where you are right now, and so that we have a sense of how to guide the conversation. I have one more slide here, just to sort of help orient us. Here are my goals for today's discussion. First and foremost, the idea is to share plans, resources, and key insights that are relevant to colleagues across the country. And so I say that just to say we recognize that this looks different across the country. Our friends in coastal and sort of well-populated places may have different plans or strategies than those in the middle part of the country. We understand that, and certainly you can speak to the issues you're dealing with locally. But let's try to keep this as national as possible so that this conversation is relevant to everybody on the call. Also, we want to make sure that we're identifying and addressing the specific challenges or questions that you're facing. So maybe you've got a question that you want to pose to the group. There might be an answer there. If there isn't an answer there, at least it's come to the attention of us in the community and to the association, so we can help look to address those down the road. We do want to provide time to explore a variety of programming strategies. So again, some of you may be looking at entirely online, some of you may be looking at hybrid, others of you are maybe thinking about how I can bring people on campus. We want to make sure we leave time today for all of that. And finally, one of my big goals is that each of you has an opportunity to identify a colleague who shares either sort of a similar programming goal to you, or maybe is at a similar garden in a different part of the country, so that you can continue this conversation after the forum. And so we are going to encourage everyone, if you're willing, after you speak up and share something about your garden, if you could type your name, garden, and email address into the chat, it'll make it really easy for us to find each other after. So if you say, oh, you know what, that person at the Queen's Botanic Garden, they had something that I really want to follow up with them about, and I've got their contact information, it's going to be really easy to do. We won't be able to fit everything into 1 hour here, and so if nothing else, I want to make sure that you connect with some other people across the country who are in the same shoes as you. So that's all I've got for now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other a little bit better. And with that, I just want to open things up. Is anyone willing to start us off with just sort of what their ideas are for this summer, plans, any challenges they're facing?
While someone is waiting to step up, I'd also like to remind anyone who has not yet answered the polling question. I still have it open, and about 91% have responded. So Gabe, let me know when you want me to close that and share the results.
You know what? If we've got 91%, that's pretty close. Joan, why don't you go ahead and show us who's in the room here?
There you go.
Okay. Actually, probably as we could have expected here, a pretty even mix between hosting on-site using enhanced public health protocols, creating summer camp in a box programs for delivery or pop-up, complemented by online programming, and then online only programming, with some of you also just canceling outright, and then a large percentage of you undecided. So hope to provide more clarity for that today, but just we recognize that some of you are dealing with different challenges. Some of you are figuring, how do we get this online quickly? And some of you are saying, how do we get people on site safely? And we'll try to navigate that balance today the best we can. So who's willing to step up first and share something with us? Tracy, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll go first, mostly because I feel like an instigator. I'm the one who started the thread in the forum, like last month. So my name is Tracy Calla. I'm the Senior Manager of School and Family Programs at Selby Gardens in Sarasota, Florida. So just so you guys have an idea of where I am with camps, in case any of you are in a similar scenario, and we can connect later. We are, well, now actually, as of last week, we are now 2 campuses. We have a small downtown Sarasota campus, and we've recently adopted a local history center as our southern campus. And they are 30 acres, about 10 miles south of us. Camps will be on both locations. The other location has already got their camp programming in place. And so where we're at the moment is that while we have our lessons planned, and we could be ready to go, we don't know if we can do it safely, because camp is camp, and how do you keep 6 and 10-year-olds off of each other? You know, how do you sanitize all of the surfaces? You know, we're not sure if we're going to be able to, if we have the budget to provide enough PPE and cleaning supplies, and how do we schedule our time to be able to clean everything between every use, provide kids with their own kits of materials, because we're not supposed to be sharing any materials at all at this point. And also like bathrooms. I mean, bathrooms are just a big question for us right now. You know, if you have 6 to 10-year-olds, like 30 of them, someone's going to the bathroom every few minutes. And so how can we close a whole bathroom to keep it just for campers? What about the guests? Do we not offer a bathroom to the public and we just reserve them for people who are here for programs? So we're a little unsure as to what we're supposed to do. We're thinking at the moment that what we might do is cancel the first 4 weeks of camp, so through June, and then at the beginning of June, reevaluate and see if we can offer the July and August sessions of camp. And if there are any people who canceled June, you know, hopefully we'll be able to get them into July or an August session if it's safe to do so. The other thing that is sort of complicating what we do with camp is that locally in Florida, the stay-at-home guidelines are very patchwork. And so our downtown campus is in city limits of Sarasota, which are much more restrictive than our southern campus, which is in the unincorporated part of the county. So we may be able to have programs in one space, but not the other space. And so that we are not really sure what to do there because the 2 places restrictions are very different.
Great, Tracy. I think you've done a great job of laying out the variety of challenges in-person camping. And towards that, I mean, I'm really glad you did that because it is a very comprehensive list that I'm sure many of you are dealing with. And some of you are saying, okay, let's skip all that. Let's go online. Let's go hybrid. If someone is sort of considering in-person camp and has solutions there, we'd love to hear from you. But also, you know, we're interested to hear from other approaches as well.
Tracy, this is Wanda Peck from Waterfront Botanical Gardens in Louisville, Kentucky. Hi.
Hi.
I'm wondering if, were your camps already full before you guys hit the quarantine? Had you already? Yes. So have you had an opportunity to get any feedback from your parents at this point? And if so, what are the parents saying that have booked into the program?
Actually, I've only had one parent request a cancellation and a refund because they live with their elderly parents, and they're concerned about their daughter possibly vectoring COVID into their home. And so all the other parents that I've heard from have all said that they're sort of waiting for us to tell them what to do, which kind of complicates things a little bit. A lot of we're also trying to benchmark along with some of our other local cultural organizations and museums, and sort of like our own survey, the responses to how they're managing camp are variable across the board. They're sort of equally divided at this point between canceling or virtual, and then a group of people who are still undecided. It's sort of like a third of each. So that kind of leaves us still not with any clear guidance. And also, just if we consider virtual, I would love to hear from anybody who can shed a little light on how to turn a super hands-on experiential camp into something fun that families would be sort of willing to accept, and what you might charge for that. And if you're going virtual, are you offering virtual camp as a replacement for in-person camp or as an alternative for people to opt into? Because there really is no, complete recreation of an in-person camp online.
This is Ashley Young from the Gardens on Spring Creek in Fort Collins, Colorado. And we're in a unique situation. We did a lot of thinking about exactly what your questions have been about a virtual camp and what that would look like. And we're pretty far down the road until this morning when we were told that we should figure out how to do camp in person because they're going to push for us to do that. So making some shifts, but we thought a lot about what Camp in the Box would look like. And completely agree. You can't replace camp, right? You can't replace the childcare. You can't replace the hands-on experience, the learning. So then what are you creating? And so really it's a whole new program that you're offering with different objectives, different goals. And so we were looking kind of for price points. We were looking a little bit at some of the other child subscription boxes that are out there, whether it's robotics or gardening or arts or stories. And most of them seem to range around $20 a box, but each box only had like one activity in it. So our goal was to set up kind of one meaty activity a day that would keep the children engaged for 1 to 2 hours, which is kind of lofty, but 1 to 2 hours with as little parent input and help as possible. And we were going to do a combination of both virtual and pre-recorded videos. So we were thinking pre-recorded video to start the day so they can start at any point in time in the morning that works for them when they wake up, when they're done with breakfast, when parents are ready to pass them off. And then we would have a scheduled Zoom session either before lunch or right after lunch. So they'd have all morning to do their activities. And then we'd gather after lunch together as a group to share what we did and maybe walk through a project that might be a little bit more challenging. We were concerned, so our camps are a week-long full-day camp, and it's $250, and we were concerned that there was no way we could replace a $250 camp with a box. So we were thinking about shooting for around $100 to $125 a box. And so that meant normally when we have really low costs because we're doing stuff in-house and the value is in the experience, we're looking at purchasing some more value additive objects. So our animal camp, for instance, we're looking at bird houses, solitary bee homes, toad homes, things that would feel like they were getting more for what they were purchasing. and trying to get some of those supplies as soon as possible. So when we started advertising to parents and telling them that camp was canceled, we could say, and this is what your option is, and here's some of those things, so we could advertise it fancily like they do in all those subscription boxes. So you can kind of see the meat in it and the activities that you're getting. We knew this would impact our revenue numbers that we normally get from summer camp, but we hoped that any revenue was better than no revenue at all, because we totally dropped it out. We also wouldn't be hiring staff for that. We would be supporting with our existing staff instead of hiring summers or seasonals. So we hope that would help with the staffing costs. We talked about buying nice boxes so that they weren't going in our reused Amazon boxes. And there was something else, but I can't think of it right now. But that's kind of where we were sitting. Oh, we were going to present to parents with, oh, it's windy in my office, sorry. We were going to present to parents that with the cancellation, they could either, they'd have a couple choices. They could exchange their registration fees for 2 boxes. They could donate their registration fees, not likely, but you never know. Or we would refund their fees, and they would be welcome to then purchase a box separate from that. We also knew our capacity would probably increase for camps with boxes, because, I mean, there'd be a limit, but we could probably get more out there than what we normally can in person. So we were anticipating advertising that to the community as well. So that was kind of where our brain had gone through with that process. And now we're switching to trying to be live again, which is terrifying, but we're going to figure it out.
Great. Dana, I see your hand raised. Do you want to jump in and say something here?
Sure. We had kind of worked with the idea of doing some virtual things, but we actually recently decided this week to cancel our summer programs. So we are not doing camp at all for June or July, and we typically would have 1 week camps for a period of 8 weeks. We did pilot doing the virtual camp with Camp in the Box for spring break, and it worked really well, but we polled our parents who were already signed up for camp for summer to see if they would like us to do like a subscription box type option or a full virtual option where we'd have the live sessions with our educators. And it was an overwhelming response that they did not want that. So I think it's just for the population that we're working with, they have been doing online learning since March 13th. And so the parents are like, I have to go back to work. I need childcare. And my kid is also over being in front of their computer, so they don't want it. So we decided not even to go down that path for planning, even though we had started thinking about that for this summer as an alternative. But we decided that, you know, staff time, you know, and trying to reallocate with what we're doing, it would not be worth the staff time to try to figure that out, or at least to replicate what we did for spring break. But we are running one of our youth programs, and it's not a summer camp, it's our youth work program where they work alongside our maintenance teams, because we maintain the Beltline Arboretum here in Atlanta. And I'm sorry, I didn't really introduce myself. I'm Dana Rinder with Trees Atlanta. I'm the Director of Education. And we maintain the Beltline Arboretum as well as other green spaces and parks and nature preserves. And so, okay, nature preserves. And so basically what we're doing is they will be working with us, but just on a smaller scale because they're teenagers. We can easily distance them socially. They can follow directions better. It's a smaller team of people, and we're able to break them up over all of the green spaces that we're working through throughout the city of Atlanta. So we're going to try that. It's not camp, but it is an opportunity for us to engage with that particular population. And we're now working with our volunteer services to see what we'll be able to do to try to engage the community for our volunteer services, because we haven't had volunteer projects since March as well. Our first one will be in, I guess, later on this month, May 23rd. And we're going to start with a very small subset of volunteers that will be helping out with different work. So for us, we're unique in that we don't necessarily have a garden per se. So we're not necessarily open or closed. It's just mainly our offices and our maintenance facilities that are open and closed. But the way we're interacting with the public is definitely changing. That's about it.
Thanks, Dave. Who else would like to share here? Annie, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Annie from Chicago Botanic Gardens. We made the decision last week to cancel all summer camps. We've told people if we are able, we'll offer some alternative options in August, but being in Chicago, we're waiting on a lot of guidelines to come down about what's going to be safe for people being in the same spaces. The American Camp Association right now is working on breaking down the CDC guidelines that have been put out so far. I just posted the link in the chat to where they're sort of slowly filling all that in with a lot of these concerns that we have about how, as a camp, do you put 6-year-olds together with social distancing and things like that. So if anybody hadn't seen that yet, that's going to be a good resource. They're not done yet, but they are working on it and said in the next couple weeks it should be done.
Thanks for sharing that resource, Annie. Who else? Cheryl?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit. We are still very much in the undecided realm. We're looking at our numbers where our registration had just opened when everybody went on lockdown, so our camps are just below half full. So we're very much, struggling with this whole decision. So and I think probably we're leaning towards either canceling completely or a possible virtual option. And I think where I'm pushing us, if we're doing a virtual option, is to push it more into a social media engagement piece where we'll put out maybe a project a day that people can do and they can decide to engage on their own with their materials at home or purchase a kit through us, and we'll have a pickup day where that kit is, and it'll prepare them for the week of activities. And then to sort of make that kit enticing, because the garden is opening up in Texas sometime in the next 30 days, to have a family pack of passes to allow them into the garden for those activities. So they can do them on their own on our site, but contact free, if that makes sense.
Cheryl, can you just remind us what garden you're at?
Fort Worth Botanic Garden in Texas, and I'm actually with Botanical Research Institute of Texas. So we do the education for both entities.
Great, thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah.
I see that Molly has posted a question in the chat about insurance companies. Molly, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, we haven't gotten any word from our insurance company yet, but I'm just kind of curious what people's insurance companies are allowing them to do. Ours is pretty, or if you're reaching out to them before you make decisions, because I'm worried about some of the liability pieces as well.
Great question, Molly. Anyone have any specific input related to that question? Crickets?
I'm a little curious in that. I'm going to bring that up to our risk manager, but yeah, something that stumped me this morning was our building manager coming back with, what does 25% capacity look like in our education classrooms, in our early childhood classroom? And 25% capacity is what I would consider almost full. So we have very different ideas on those numbers, and I'm curious as to what our insurance would say about that as well.
Tracy, go ahead, and then Jeremy, I saw you had your hand up also.
I don't really have a specific answer to that, but I actually was in a meeting yesterday with somebody from one of our local school districts, and she's an arts program specialist, and she said that one of the things that they're looking at, because their arts programs like band and choir and things is very much like camp, and that people are, you know, working very close together, and whether they're inside or outside, you know, they're gathering in groups. And two things that they have been told is that what they should do to minimize their liability is to have ironclad waivers and agreements with all participants drawn up by an attorney, and to get enhanced liability insurance, and then test, if you guys have rapid testing or antibody testing available, to test before like each meeting, if possible. But if you don't have that, then to do temperature checks and to go through a family checklist, like, do you have anybody in your family, or have you come in contact with anybody with fever, coughing, tightness of breath, loss of smell, taste, and make sure that you do that every time.
Jeremy, do you want to go ahead either on that topic or a different one?
Sure. I'll introduce myself. So I'm Jeremy from the Morton Arboretum. So I think it was Dana that mentioned youth volunteers working offsite. We went through our HR and volunteer office to make sure that if we did have student age volunteers conducting, like, you know, a program offsite, that would still be covered by our volunteer insurance. So we waited to make sure we could get coverage on that to try to offer a digital version of our youth volunteer program this summer, which it sounds like we are, so we're going to try that. But in terms of camp, yeah, we're really wrestling with all the same issues. I think we have a plan right now to cancel in-person camp through June and try to pick up after our 4th of July break with the back half of the season in person still, following whatever safety protocols Illinois has in place to reopen the state. And we're gonna let the state determine what guidelines we should follow as far as group size, and try to make things as safe as possible. But we also are exploring how to still offer a camp experience online in June and also through the rest of the summer, even with everybody e-learning. And I know people are getting tired of it, but I'm heartened by some experiences my staff have had doing some preschool programs through platforms like Seesaw, and getting some really positive response from the audiences that were dying to interact with us on some kind of fashion. You know, they can't come on grounds, but they were all so happy to just see the staff that they used to see in person all the time, and even digitally having a chance to kind of engage with us was a really positive experience for them. So I know I know my kids are tired of it. I'm tired of it as a parent, but we're still going to try to do some digital camps throughout the rest of the summer, just because we know people want to engage with us. And even if we have in-person camps, I'm sure some people won't want to come back to them and be in a shared space. So we're going to keep those digital options out there. I think it's worth doing if you can do it, not as a replacement, but as a way to kind of keep the momentum up and engage a really important audience in a way that aligns with your mission.
Jeremy, I think that's a great transition here. We've talked a good bit about getting people on site and a lot of those concerns, and we can continue that. But I am curious if anyone is sort of forging forward with online education, any ideas there. Jeremy mentioned Seesaw as a platform. I'm wondering if anyone has any experience with that or other platforms that they're using that they found to be particularly good for young children. Sarah, go ahead. Sarah States.
Thanks, Gabe. I'm Sarah States. I'm also from Phipps Conservatory in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We are forging ahead with online programming for kids this summer. I don't want to reiterate too much of what other folks have said, but Western Pennsylvania is not open yet. We don't know when that will be, maybe in June, but even if it does open up, we have a lot of concerns about the safety of kids congregating in bathrooms, having kids social distance. It's hard, and also the considerations of staff health as well. We've heard from a few families and some other folks, and there is interest in online education, and like what Jeremy said, we really want to stay connected with our families. So we will be doing some shorter summer camps, well, shorter programs. So a 4-day, maybe 2-hour program each day. And then on Fridays, we'll have kind of one-off programs that people can join if they'd like. We are still figuring this out. We don't have all the answers yet. Yeah, that's kind of where we're going. We are also working with we're also using Seesaw because I know a lot of schools have had success with that. It's a way to have kind of more legitimate interactive educational opportunities. We will also be trying to do a virtual tour of the conservatory or of some of the rooms and have our docents lead kids through these tours. We're excited about that opportunity too, because I know that some organizations across the country have had a lot of success with virtual tours. So that will be a part of our online programming. And I know there's a couple other FIPS staff here, so if I'm missing anything, feel free to jump in, but we're gonna give it a try.
I'm having trouble keeping up with the chat here, but I did see that Karen from Coastal Maine Botanic Garden also is a first grade teacher and has used Seesaw a lot, so offered anyone interested in that platform, she'd be happy to connect, and her information is there. Karen, is there anything you'd want to say about the advantages you found of Seesaw, just to speak up and say a little bit about that?
Yeah. One thing about Seesaw that has been really great is it works for family schedules, right? It's not a live Zoom session where people have to log in at a certain time, but I send things like videos of myself reading stories or links to different things on YouTube, and you can assign activities that you create or that other teachers have created. And it's a really easy platform. Even kindergartners can do it. And parents can see all that the kids do for work. And it's private too, so other parents don't see other kids' work, which is really my favorite part working at a public school.
Thanks, Karen, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Does anyone know what the costing is for Seesaw? I mean, if you're with a school, then it's most likely covered there, but.
Most people can get it for free at a basic level. Because I'm a Seesaw ambassador, so I do a training every year to stay up to date. And so I get the more advanced stuff for free, but I have no idea what it really costs because I get it free.
Now, we've been using Zoom to do virtual education. We do in-school curriculum as well. And so when we stopped going into the schools with all the closures, we did start using Zoom. So that's offered a little bit of success, and we've recorded a lot of those webinars so that kids can download them on demand when they'd like to look at them. So we still plan on doing that to a certain degree when June and July come, just so that there's some type of interaction with us on the educational level, since we won't be doing camp. And our insurance also cautioned us. I mean, they haven't come back with a formal statement of what would be covered, what wouldn't be covered, but our rep basically indicated that the overarching thought was you don't want to be that camp where kids get sick. So that was part of our decision making as well.
I think, I may be wrong here, but I think Marisol Mata is on the call from APGA, and Marisol helps oversee the Plant Heroes program through APGA, which has some digital resources. Marisol, if you're there, would you want to just say a little bit about what Plant Heroes has to offer right now?
Hi, can you guys hear me? Yeah? Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Gabe, and thank you everyone for all the hard work you've been doing. This kind of caught us at the moment where we were hoping to just sort of launch the future phase of the Plant Heroes. This is fake, by the way. It's just my way of covering my blue sheet here. so anyway, we were working on the launch of the new website, which is going to house all the digital copies that you as Public Garden members could get as printed copies, but now everything lives online on the website. But the one thing, so we have everything on the planheroes.org website. If you go to the educators tab, you can filter all the materials that we have available at this time, and everything has been updated. So we have removed some of the negative content, and some of the, we have crafted the characters to be a little bit more friendly and more scientifically accurate than they were before. And we have also, we are working really hard to create new lessons. And this is sort of coming at a weird time because now not everybody will be ready for lessons. But for when you guys are, what we're hoping to do is create lessons that can be helpful to you. And essentially we have three sort of set of audiences that we have been working with based on feedback from you guys. And that was school visits, summer camp activities, and then your free choice, you know, grab and go materials that we could easily send to the gardens for you to use whenever you can. And we are working on developing new of all these materials. And I understand that a lot of it being digital right now is important, but we're sort of on a roll for creating stuff that can be used on site and could still use your editing power. Like if you would like to look at them and say, hey, this is something we would use, or how can we make it better for you? I would love to have your input. So if you are interested and you are thinking about in the future when we can actually go back to these in-person events and would like to think creatively about that, please send me an email and I could send you materials to look at, and you can tell me what you think. Or if there's any other way that you think any of the stuff on the website can be tailored to your needs, I'm also always open to that conversation. And we've also launched our social media, so we can easily cross-post if you have like an event that you're doing, and we can easily just post it. We have a Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook and Twitter accounts. So if there's something very cool that you're doing and you would like to share it with us, we can easily do that on the Plan Heroes platform. So you feel free to just send me a quick email and I can work on that. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. And again, we're still working on creating new stuff, focusing on forest health, ecology, and plant conservation. So if any of those sound interesting to you, I'm always looking for ideas of new materials and new things, and some of them could be digital. I just don't have that in my, it's everything is moving so fast, and I know you all know that completely. So, but feel free to reach out if anything I said sounds interesting to you or useful, and I'll be here. I'm here all week.
Perfect. And actually, Joan very nicely just posted your email address into the chat so people can grab that if they've got questions. I did want to turn the conversation a little bit back to sort of some hybrid programs, some of these boxes. I'm scanning the chat here, and I saw that Molly Parsons is doing a box distribution program in concert with the local museum, and it sounds like doing quite a bit of that. Molly, would you want to say a little bit about what program you're doing now with box distribution?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I'm at the Santa Fe Botanical Garden. We serve a fairly low income population here in Santa Fe. About 75% of our kids are at or below the poverty level, and a lot of them can't afford summer camps anyway. So we've been partnering with the city for the last 4 years on summer camps with them. The city is not able to run camps this summer, so we're moving with our partner organizations. We work with about 40 museums and Audubon and other organizations around this region to partner on different projects anyway. And we've been providing pickup kits at the hot lunch distribution sites in our community. And we're gonna basically roll that into the summer with more hands-on fun activities and hopefully online components for families to do. Is that
Sorry,
Isn't
I'm
it
hearing
Edie or
another
is it
voice, so I'm
Evie?
trying to decide if it's questions
Edie.
or.
So Edie was up here walking around.
Sorry, hang on a
Oh,
second.
okay.
Sent a text to
So
Clinton
I'm happy to answer any
an hour
questions
ago
about
about we
that.
need
It's
to get
working out really well for us because
we
we're
had a
breaking
time
it into
we
different
had
age
5 or
groups.
6
So we're going to
Molly,
have.
can you hang on one second? I apologize. We're having trouble. Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah. No, I'm just used to it. Zoom calls are just like this all the time. So we're going to be doing about 1,700 kits a week, for broken down into different age groups and demographics.
Molly,
Yeah,
I'm sorry
so
if I
we'll
missed
see how it
this,
goes.
but how is that funded?
Yeah, so we've applied for some community funding to pay the organizations to put together the our pieces of the curriculum, and then we're putting together materials lists, and then the funding is actually going to come from the city in the money that they were going to spend on their camp program anyway. And so we're providing all the PDFs and the material lists and all those pieces, and then they're going to actually put the kits together and help distribute them. So it's really a community-wide effort.
Thanks, Molly. Okay, who else has stories to share, questions for the group that they'd like answered? Anybody?
Hi, yes, I have a question for anyone that's already done or is doing the in the box method. Are you sending out your materials to have them professionally printed, or are you guys just creating in-house materials and trying to make them look really nice? So that would be my question. I feel like we would do our best to try to make things look nice, but I guess it worries me a little bit if we're creating a box that we're sending to someone's home. Does that need to look super hyper professional, even though it's just for children, or how are you guys doing that?
Great question, Wanda. Anyone who's got experience putting these boxes together have some insight into putting together something really, I don't know, fun and attractive and sort of up to their garden standards, or sort of what's the approach here?
We've been putting together boxes and sending stuff out, and families are just really happy to get anything. I'm doing it on Word. I put our logo on it. But I feel like it's more about the quality of the activities,
right,
than it is about having something super shiny. But I'm also at a really small garden, and
yeah, we're still on phase 1. We had this was going to be our first summer camps completely. Waterfront is a brand new garden, so everything is just brand new to us. So I have taught summer camps in the past, but I was just kind of curious. Definitely, I mean, I would assume that we would just do everything in-house too, but I was wondering. Thank you.
I have a question. I don't know if it's going to really apply to too many people's experiences here, because we're kind of in an undecided stage. I'm Liz Jankowski. I'm from Botanical Gardens in Burlington. We have yet to decide whether we're doing a full cancellation of summer camps or not. Right now, we've just canceled through the first week of July and are hoping to run as much as we can for the rest of the summer based on when our province decides to open. But my question is, if anyone is in this boat, right now we're looking at almost full registration for campers, but we might get into a situation, or I've got a plan for a situation where we may be able to run camp, but with restricted numbers, like maybe with lower group sizes. So I'm wondering if anyone has thought through that in their camps and would be willing to just throw a couple pointers my way. Thanks.
Thanks, Liz.
I can kind of a little bit speak to that. Another local organization have done the same, where they've canceled their June through like 4th of July weeks of camp, and then they are taking reservations only for July and August. They're not taking any payments. from families. So that way, if the families decide not to bring their kids to camp, or if camp can't be held, or if they need to reduce their numbers, then they are not in the situation where they have to do refunds. And then at that point, they are going to determine how many people they can have in the building, because like groups of 10 also includes your staff and anybody else who might be in the building, and then offer camp slots sort of in the order in which they were reserved.
Thanks, Tracy. That was helpful.
Anyone else sort of taking reservations, or sort of taking that sort of a wait and see approach for later in the summer and planning on how to make it work with reduced numbers? Tarnisha, I see you've got your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question about the boxes. I'm going to piggyback of Wanda's question. I want to know, do they send them out like a library book? Is it like a checkout thing and they send it back to them? Or is that something that families just get to keep, complimentary of the garden?
It's a great question. Molly, how is it working in your model?
For us, it's entirely grant funded, and we're just, we're not expecting anything back. And in some ways, it's a chance for us to get materials in the hands of families that might not have them otherwise, including really basic supplies. Like I'm hearing from a lot of the teachers I work with that their kids don't have like colored pencils or sharpeners at home. So it's an opportunity for us to try to distribute those kind of materials as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, that apart from just the programming piece, is there are some funds out there to help support people, sort of community response. And so if those can sort of overlap with other needs, there may be a way to kind of connect with some of those grant resources. Yeah. Good question.
I saw Daniel had a hand up earlier. Daniel, did you want to ask a question or append?
Sure, I have a question, and some folks have been talking about this, but when we first did that poll, 24, 26% of people said they were planning on proceeding. And I just wondered if, that's kind of what we've been hearing. We're planning on it, but we've got all these questions. Or if there are people who haven't spoken up yet, who have kind of felt like they've seen the safety protocols and they have figured this out and they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and they know they're going forward. And I'm just curious to know if anyone is at that point, or really all of us are pretty much, even when we say we're proceeding, we still are in a wait and see mode.
Great question, Daniel. Is there anyone who feels like they have put Elizabeth? Is that a hand raised?
That's the best I could do.
Yeah, no, go for it. That's great. That's perfect.
We're in Idaho. We're in phase 1, soon, I guess, to move into phase 2 unless things fall apart. Our camps don't start until July, so that's going to be phase 3 or phase 4 by the time that rolls around. The registrations for our camp have, for most of the sessions, we have 6 weeks, have only been about half full. So we just cut off the registration. There is 1 week of camp we were going to do in conjunction with another organization that there was 25 kids. So we're going to have, open up an extra class of kids. So we're going to take 1 group, divide it in 2, and have 3 groups of kids at once instead of 2. So we've decided that we're just going to follow like the CDC guidelines and the state guidelines for daycares, which are now, again, open in our state, and try to follow those. We'll check temperatures of kids as they come in, and then just follow basic sanitation recommendations for the restrooms and surfaces. We won't have the kids share materials. We'll put together a kit per kid with the scissors and the crayons, etc. That each child would just use their own space, not play games where there are activities or passing things from child to child, and just trying to be careful.
That's great. And I heard you say sort of sticking with the child care protocols, and that does seem like it would be a good thing to track alongside. I appreciate that comment. Anyone else in that boat who'd like to share kind of what their protocols are, either for next few weeks or later in the summer? Things they haven't maybe heard mentioned already that they could contribute to the group. There is a question for Megan in the chat. Has anyone who is going ahead with in-person camps thought about how to teach social distancing to children? So just how are we communicating this message in a way that is upbeat? And any thoughts from the group? That's a great question.
Hey, Gabe, I'll just make a suggestion. And to Daniel's point, I feel like all we can do is plan right now. So, I mean, yeah, we have plans, we have ideas, but who knows like what we're going to wake up to tomorrow, let alone next month, when camp season is really here. So yeah, I think these conversations are helpful for me just to get other ideas. And in terms of teaching social distancing to children, I think a lot of the messaging that we're going to be doing through like the registration process is going to be about, okay, these are the protocols we have in place. This is what we hope that you will help us with before your kid ever gets to camp. And we've talked about that not just for this summer, but probably in the fall and maybe even beyond. Like, what other kind of expectations can we make clear for the parents with children coming to our programs that we're coming back to a new normal, and what can you help us prepare your child for before they ever get to our program? Social distancing is probably going to be a big part of that.
Great. And Daniel, did you have a follow-up comment or question?
Oh no, I just wanted to send a little applause or thumbs up, because I think that comment that all we can do is make plan A, B, and C, and then find out if we need to go to plan D. So I just was kind of seconding that. Yeah.
Good. Very good. And thanks, Jeremy. It's a great point. Sort of how we can sort of engage the parents to also help support us in this effort. Tarnisha, I guess you see you have your hand raised as well. Go ahead.
Do you guys have the data of how many gardens have canceled all their programs versus how many's open? Do you have like a bar graph or something that can show us those numbers?
It's a good question. Joan, any thoughts there?
Yes, we did a garden survey. We did one in March. We did a second one in April. And if you go to I believe it's in our COVID-19 resource part of our website, we had compiled statistical data on number of gardens and also cumulative of when the closures were, as well as program closings. And some communities did deeper dives also on what programs were canceled. We were trying to also compile statistics that show revenue impacts so that we can aggregate that information and begin to help leverage funding from sources that we feel can help all gardens. So that data is all on our site.
Great. Would you be able to post a link to that site in the chat, Joan?
I will.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, Marisol's already got it.
She's on it. Yeah. We tag team on that.
Great. We have just a couple of minutes left. Additional thoughts, ideas, questions, insights, anything you'd want to share with the organization or with your colleagues, excuse me, or other things that would be helpful for you in the next few weeks to a month to sort of get ready. How can you be best supported? I am looking at the chat, just a reminder, young children, kindergarten and under are impulsive and physical. I'm not sure how successfully we can teach them social distancing, and concerns about lengthy mask wearing requirements, which could be tough during the summer. So something to consider, could be a challenge, especially during the hot summer. And then we do want to also encourage you to come next week. We are going to be talking more about reopening specifically next week. And so today was sort of a focus on summer camps and also sort of looking across sort of in-person, blended, and online to sort of get sort of a range. For next week, we will sort of continue the conversation around reopening. If there are sort of subtopics within that that would be valuable for us to address, please, speak up now, put it in the chat, or feel free to email us because we want to make sure that that discussion meets all of your needs. So any thoughts on specifically as we address reopening from an education perspective, anything specific you'd like us to focus on? Good question in the chat where we're sourcing sanitation, PPE, et cetera. So there's some challenges there, sort of just finding that information. That's really good. Yeah. Okay. Again, we have just a minute or two here. Additional thoughts or questions that people would like to share before we part? Okay. Well, I just really appreciate everyone's time today. I appreciate everyone coming together. I know it's really helpful for us just to share our experiences. If you haven't yet, please put your contact information into the chat. We'll save that if you're willing. We'll send out notes and information from the chat along with the recording of this webinar in the next few days. So if you go, it's all available through the APGA website. Through the education, I think it's the Science and Education resource tab. Is that right, Joan? Is that where they can find those webinars?
We're keeping all of them right now in the COVID-19 resources just because it's all about the Engaging While Closed series. But we are also, I believe, posting or uploading that within the community. Some are in the community library, but most of it's in the COVID-19 area.
Perfect. So that's, yeah, one-stop shop for everything. Okay, thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your days and hope to see you next week. Thanks.
Bye everyone.